Hi, my name is Sarah Wilder, and this is officially my first 2019 recording. So I'm doing things a little bit differently now. I have video, obviously, which is what you are watching now, or you will be hearing me on my podcast. So I'm wanting to share both my presence visually and obviously audibly. There we go. And just get, I guess, what I wanted to say out in front of many ears and eyes as much as possible this year, because I think we're all experiencing some really significant changes, and I wanted to share what I was experiencing within my own self, which is obviously going to be then reflective as a collective kind of experience as well, which is something we all know does tend to happen, particularly if you are venturing on the awakening path. So if you have been experiencing many shifts in your consciousness over your lifetime, you will know that you are not alone, and that there are many people on a similar and parallel kind of journey to you, but also that now there's an increase of people awakening. So, if you awakened 15 years ago, it might have felt really isolating, but now you're finding that there are people coming from every walk of life experiencing something that you have experienced previously or are experiencing now. And it is kind of refreshing to know that you aren't alone, and that there's many people embarking on very similar journeys to you. So I guess what I wanted to do with this work that I'm putting out is more open up conversations, and also to hold space for you to unravel your own thought processes on these things. So there might be things that I talk about that are not your experience, or things that are your experience, and it allows for you to check in on your own shit and say, hell yeah, I'm there with you, or no, that's not my experience, I don't see things that way. And you will start to realize that even though we aren't experiencing the same thing, it is very relatable in a sense. There are people probably in your world that are experiencing similar things to me, or we all kind of do eventually line up along at some point of our journey here. And I know for myself, when I first kind of shifted in my consciousness in 2011, 2012 was probably my first major one. A few years earlier than that, though, I lost my father, and that was a big time for me to go through a significant shift as well. So, I think I've just been shifting in kind of every few years since my early 20s, but the last two shifts have been obviously more significant because I am more opening my, and aligning all of my spiritual body. I can now feel things on a much more micro level than I used to be able to. So, my emotional vocabulary has increased as I've become more and more aware of really kind of acute things that are going on in the world. And I'm obviously more sensitive to energies and collective energies and other people's energy and my own, as you may be also. And also, each time you do shift, you basically peel back more layers of the programming that you've basically been subjected to. You peel back more layers that were basically protecting yourself from finding your true self. So your ego body is now connecting to your soul body and all that kind of thing. So it's a big conversation. It's an ongoing conversation. I think it's a really important one to have, because I know a lot of people are experiencing a lot of mental health issues. I know a lot of people are feeling really quite disconnected from reality, and not even really knowing what reality is anymore. Things feel really different, and they will continue to feel more and more different as we ascend, essentially. So what I mean when I use these kind of more spiritual language is, my belief is, and what I've been feeling is, that the earth is upgrading her energy field. So she's moving from a more three-dimensional space to inevitably moving to a 5D space. And so what that means is that she is shifting her vibration. So she's raising her vibration. Everything is vibration. You and me, we are vibrational beings. We have a certain level of energy moving through our body at all times. And so does the earth. And so everything that's reflected within our own body is also reflected into the earth's body and in our exterior experience as well. So all life on earth is vibrational and alive and is full of energy. So this is all science too, like this is proven science, so it's not spiritual jargon. And so when you see that we are just all basically vibrational energy beings, and you do start to feel out of alignment with your current life. So this is typically shown through things like, say you are going to school and you're feeling like you're not inspired at school, you feel like people don't understand you, you feel like the teachers don't see you for who you are, and they're basically treating you more like a number than an actual individual human with emotions and with feelings and with intentions and with desires. And so they look at you more in a three-dimensional kind of way, as opposed to seeing you in your light, in your five-dimensional beingness, in your ascendedness. That's not even a word, but I'm making it up. That's cool. Let's go with it. So when you are in a place where you start to see and feel that there's something more and something bigger than yourself and what you have been taught from a young age. So you've got to go to school, you've got to go to university to get the job. You then work for the man 9 to 5, you meet the love, you have a baby, you buy the house, you retire, you go on a couple of trips, and then you die, right? So that's the old 3D programming. It's very based on fear. So it's like, if you don't do this, then there will be a consequence kind of thing. So if you don't go to school and don't finish school, you're not going to be able to get a job and live in the world. You're not going to be able to contribute. You're never going to find the right person. You're never going to find social status that you believe that you deserve and all that kind of thing. So we all know this layer, right? So we can feel quite disconnected from the mainstream, basically, the mainstream world that we have been raised in. And so when you start to question the things that you are told that you have to do or that you should do, and you start to look outside of that scope, that's when your energy or your vibration starts to shift. So if you're exposing yourself to things outside of that programming, you are experiencing a first shift in your consciousness and in your vibrational upgrading. So you maybe are feeling like a fish out of water. You're just like, okay, so I'm experiencing all these things, but why doesn't anyone else around me see or feel this? And you might be a super sensitive person, you might be quite empathic, and this is you now being open and more susceptible to this energy upgrade and more ready to vibrationally increase your awareness and ascend, in a sense that you now have a much more full spectrum of emotions, of intelligence, of knowledge, of wisdom. And it comes from this tiny little offering that you thought you had to this massive, like, full, vast plethora of just knowledge and stuff that you didn't know existed and you didn't believe was reality until now. So you start to see and put things back together. So that's why a lot of people, go experiment with things like psychedelics, because it does open your perspective and shows you another way to view the world. And so that's all that is. It's all like, it's a gateway to, from where you are to another place. It's not something that we should abuse it, but it is definitely something that does help alter our state of awareness and show us more than what we already know or feel to be true. So now we're open to more possibilities. We're seeing more and more synchronicities. We are noticing things on a much more minute and acute level. So, for me, when I was going through my shift, I really started to take note of really subtle things going on around me. So I'd start to listen to the birds a little bit more, and I'd start to get animal messengers my way. So, and I would feel like that was a significant thing. And so that's that's just one of the many things that can happen. So obviously the universe sends you signs, the universe, source, your higher self, whatever you want to call it. There's a million different languages for basically the same thing. So I'll probably interchange with my language too, but just know this is our higher self. This is our, I guess, like Christ consciousness, the next level, the 5D version of ourselves. So with that, we then start to see all these synchronicities. We start to notice things, more intently, and we go on a bit of a soul journey. We feel like we kind of isolate ourselves possibly. We feel like we can't relate. We do tend to go off the deep end a little bit if we do get really kind of caught up in learning this place, because it's kind of like, you can imagine a toddler when they first start to walk, how exciting it is to start walking, right? So even though they're a bit wobbly in this place, nothing's holding them back. They want to see everything. They want to run everywhere. And there's face plants, and there's stacks, and there's also pure joy, but there's also a lot of sadness. And that's kind of what I feel like an awakening and the journey between, one dimension to another is this kind of rite of passage. So you get up and you're kind of floundering and you're trying to learn the ways of the world now from this new perspective. So obviously you've got to give yourself permission to fall. You've got to give yourself permission to learn this place, because it's new to us. It's new to us in this reality. We've probably experienced it in many other lifetimes and are living it in lots of other parallel ways. But in this life experience, I had never physically seen these things before from this particular perspective that I was at. So now, you're the toddler kind of flailing around, running around, excited, but you are then susceptible to lots of other things that weren't really on your radar before either. So this is where you can experience a lot of extreme emotions. This is why things like the moon tend to really affect you, and you do start to tune into the energies of those things, because when you are aware of your surroundings and you do feel more influenced by lots of other energy, and you are less numb. Basically, you're asleep in that third dimensional reality, like your spiritual body is offline. So when it comes online, your emotional body, your physical body, and your spiritual body all have to kind of start working together for the first time. And they're all online, so there's lots of there's an adjustment period essentially. So that's what I'm calling, obviously, and most people are calling the 4D. So this is the kind of bridge between the 3 and the 5D, which is where we ultimately want to be. And look, I'm not saying this is going to be next year that we're all going to be in the 5D and we're all going to be killing it. So don't see this as a race. I think I really want to stress that. You could spend an entire lifetime upgrading your energy from 3D and deprogramming yourself and unlearning all the things that you were taught in your first part of your life, in the second part of your life. And then when you pass, you have done that work to then pass on to your spirit to then carry it out in the 4-dimensional, 5th dimension in the next lifetime. So there is no timeline. There's no known timeline for any one person. And yes, on a collective scale, there's more and more of us accelerating in our ascension process and moving through a lot of the stuff a lot quicker than we may have, years ago in our first lot of awakenings. I feel like I've moved mountains of energy through my body in the last 2 months, more than I did in the first 20 years of my life. So that time doesn't really exist in that place. But what I want to stress is that it's not a race to get there, because we're all going there together. So if we are finding ourselves operating from that higher frequency, it doesn't mean we get to just disappear and go, see you guys, laters, it was cool to know ya. Like, your work then, if you go and do that work, if you're ahead in that sense, in a linear time frame, if you've kind of done that work sooner than some of the others around you, then it's your time to be of service to humanity. So you're actually one of the way showers, I guess. So your work in the 3D is never done. It is never done. So don't ever assume that you can just peace out on this reality and, say fuck the man and never be back, because you are in this world. You need to stay grounded in this planetary experience, this earth experience. And the ways that you can do that is stay really connected to nature. That's our key to staying grounded and staying in our power here, and being of service to those who are awakening. So the people who feel like they're going through the same pains that you went through, the same kind of kundalini awakenings, the same traumas that they're processing and healing, the setting of the boundaries, all these things that happens in these spiritual awakening periods, you're kind of sitting pretty because you have done the work, which is not really a thing, but let's say you just have a bit of a breather, right? So, you feel like you've been through the trenches and you come out the other side and you're now having a bit of a chill out time, which definitely happens. And I know a lot of people who are in that time now, but it's not time to just like unsubscribe from the world. It's more like it's your chance to then offer your wisdom and hold space for others around you who are experiencing it, and just remind them of their power. Remind them of the person that they're trying to reconnect to within them, that they can see. They can visualize their highest self. They know what they want. And if they don't, then that's the work, right? So you've got to remind them of try and find out who you are and what you want. What's your desires, and go down those rabbit holes of discovering who you actually are and what your place is in this world. Because I think, if we're all wandering aimlessly and don't have purpose in life, I think that can really hold us back in our ascension process too. So, it's about identifying your gifts and your strengths, identifying what influences you, whether that be like in your astrology chart, or whether you identify as an introvert or an extrovert, and what your strengths are in different fields. So obviously the past experiences definitely do help in shape who you are and what your gift is to then give to the world as well. I don't think we should completely cut off our story and all the things we previously learnt. I think that's plays a big role in the work we are to then do as way showers. So I think everything kind of is an accumulation up until this point. Like everything that goes on in your life is a part of this story, a part of this person that you are becoming. And this person that you're becoming is fucking magical. And I can see that in myself. I've let go of a lot of stuff that was really tethering me down into that lower vibrational shit, because I was scared. I was scared of ascending. I was scared of losing touch. I was scared of my power. And, I lost a lot of confidence. But now I feel like I'm back on the spiral again I'm back on the way out and up, in a linear sense. And so, it is up to me now to continue on that upward spiral, but also encourage others to keep going on theirs too. So I don't think that, I'm some master now and I'm this guru that I'm showing you how to do it. I'm simply still on the path. I'm just a little bit ahead of you. And that's why this is resonating for you, because it's like your key and your sign from the universe to keep moving forward in the direction that you feel and know to be your truth. So this is big work, guys. I would never wish this on anyone, a lot of the stuff that we're experiencing, in that sense. It's like, it's not for the faint-hearted, and you can't judge people for not choosing this either. I think that's a huge part of, initially when I first went through my spiritual awakening and I went from, the crawling baby to the hacking, walking toddler. I judged people for not choosing this path. Why don't you see it? Why don't you see it the way I see it? Like, if you just knew what it was like here. And I would project my shit on people like that thinking that, you know, this was the only way to do things, and this was the, and yeah, in a way, we're all going to be eventually evolving. But again, like I said, the timeline is different for literally everyone, and there's no way of knowing what everyone's timeline is. You choose it. So if you choose to come online in 20 years' time, then I can't judge you, because you're just living out your life the way that you're choosing to every day. And it's just not your time. I can't interfere with that. I saw a really cool, I watched the Sabrina the Teenage Witch Netflix series. I don't know if you watched that as well over the Christmas break. And there was a really cool part where Sabrina, who's half witch and half human, she was basically given a moral dilemma where she was trying to help her muggle boyfriend with some stuff to do with his family, and she did some magic to try and help him, and it really backfired on her. It totally all blew up in her face, and he ended up breaking up with her, and, you know, there was this whole thing. And anyway, she was talking to, I think, her aunties who are full-blood witches, and the advice they gave her was something along the lines of, you can't meddle in other people's, or like, you know, the muggles kind of timelines. Like, you just can't. It is the ultimate life skill as a witch, is to allow the natural order to occur. And so that really stuck with me, because it's like letting nature just take its course and not trying to force your way into it. So, you know, when you do feel really, you know, that contrast between, you know, say you're in a long-term relationship and your partner is just not on the same journey as you, and you're feeling now you're really disconnected and you can't find that commonality anymore, and you're trying to invite them into the space with you, but there's a resistance. And the thing I need to say to you about that, because I've been in that situation, is it is not your place. You are not their teacher. And so when you realize that you are not their teacher, you are their partner, you can make a choice whether to be their partner or not. So you have a choice to either part ways or to accept them for who they are, because that's the person that you signed up to be in a relationship with. So if you're a different person and they're a different person, then you need to do another check-in and say, hey, is this going to work, or are we just very different people and on completely different journeys, and we can't find that common ground anymore, and we can't support each other and our differences. So, you know, for me now, I see that as a really powerful way to either accept the person in your life that is not particularly on this path with you, and still respect them, and still find enough common ground together to be able to make it work. Because I think that we tend to think that everyone has to be like us in order for us to be with them or have them as friends, and simply not the case. That was definitely, you know, in my toddler times, that was definitely what I thought the world had to be like. In order for me to be this ultra spiritual person. However, now I realize in this next layer that's coming up for me is that I really love the contrast. I really love all the different walks of life. I really embrace them. I respect them, and I observe them. And, you know, it's kind of like spiritual maturity, right? It's like, you kind of get to a point where you just allow things to naturally occur around you, and you don't let it fuck up your vibration. I mean, if something is obviously going to feel like a toxic situation or is not for the greatest good, then you have a choice to leave, and you should definitely protect your own energy. Absolutely. But if it's all ego shit, like, oh, you're not as spiritual as me, you're not as woke as me, so I can't be your friend or I can't be your lover, then, you know, that's something you've got to work on. That's a sign for you to go, hang on a minute, what's this shit really about? And ask some more questions, because, you know, you never get to the woke place. There's no end to this. There's no, it's a continual unfolding, and you will do that till the day you die. So as long as you realize that you're no better than anyone else, and there's no real timeline for any of this shit, then you just do your own work, and the people around you, if they respect it and love you with unconditional love and you give that back to them, then that's the people that you want in your life. And it's really that simple. It doesn't matter what they do with their life. As long as you respect them and you unconditionally love them, you know, I think that's just the way this world works now in this new vibrational place in the 5D, right? So that's how we now relate to each other. So we check in and we say, do we have different lifestyles or difference of opinions, but do I still see value in what you are saying? And I do see that that is your truth and that you are really, truly living out, your life in your alignment. Then yeah, you can't say that that's not the right way, because there is really no right or wrong. It's just whatever feels good for you at the time. And we change so much too. So if we got rid of everyone every time we thought we were there, we would be lonely and we'd have nobody. And that's not the way to live either, because we crave connection. We need connection to thrive. So that's a false wokeness as well. So yeah, there's lots of checking in on your shit constantly, seeing where your judgments are and why you're judging people, and it's just another opportunity to look inside. So anyway, that's what I've been doing. And I really wanted to open up this conversation because it's such an interesting time now where, again, perception is shifting, and I'm seeing so many more perspectives opening up around me. There's so many different things that I never even saw, in the last year. A year ago, my values and views have changed on a lot of things, or shifted focus. I still don't have enough interest or opinion on things to really be super passionate about it yet, but I'm definitely interested in what a lot of stuff that's going on out there that's not necessarily mainstream concepts. And, there's so much shit that I want to talk about, and I have a little bit of fear, to be honest, about talking about a lot of it. But I know it's kind of an underground movement that is happening in lots of different places. But at the end of the day, the work is that we are basically getting ourselves back online, our energy bodies back online. So, this is chakras, this is meridians, that's what I'm talking about here. The stuff we can't see with our naked eye, but we can feel it. We know, we have this knowing that everything's, a lot more complex and deeper than it seems. And we are now capable of learning about it and having full disclosure without freaking the fuck out. So, even things like something that's really piqued my interest of late is alien races. Super fascinating topic. And I will do that in a completely separate thing. And I might enlist a couple of friends who, are privy to that information, and I jam with occasionally about that stuff too. But once upon a time, that would have scared the shit out of me, talking about aliens and their presence in our kind of field of awareness, and in our skies. And now I'm like, fuck yeah, let's talk about this. I want to know more because I'm so curious. But you just take things as you can handle them, basically. And that's just the age-old truth. People will tell you things over and over again, but it's not until you're ready to hear it that you will actually do anything about it or be open to receiving it. So yeah, that's just another part of this journey, as of spiritual people or bodies having a human experience, right? Yeah, so the second round of spiritual awakening that we're experiencing, this mass kind of spiritual awakening that's occurring, I've seen it as so there was kind of two groups of spiritual awakenings that happened, or did originally happen, and that was obviously decalcifying the third eye. So this guy here. So that basically means that we do have a third eye. It's a pineal gland in here, and that kind of opens up our perspective and perception of the world a little bit deeper and broader and much more multidimensional. So this is when you start to have really whack dreams or experiences, but just also really unlocking an inner knowing. It's kind of like a inner navigation system that comes back online, so you can really start to see things and know about things that you didn't traditionally learn, like, you know, at university or through study or whatever. It's just like when you hear something and you just like, you're nodding because you already kind of know it, but it's like, oh yeah, I know that. That's true. That's true. And where does that shit come from? How do we know that? That's from the third eye. So, and then obviously we have all these new ways of communicating, so we can communicate telepathically, and I can actually do that with my son now. We've kind of been practicing it a little bit, but we've had dreams and experiences separate from each other, which have brought us together and swapped stories about it. So it's definitely a thing. It's as simple as like when you think about a friend and they text you, that stuff. That's this like awareness now that we're calling it into telepathically, like we're tuning into their energy field, and when they're thinking about us, we're thinking about them, because it's like this new level of awareness and communicating is coming back online. So, you know, we practice that more and more, and it gets deeper and deeper and louder. So we are definitely experiencing that on a much more broader scale now. You'll start to notice friends who didn't always think like that, or didn't believe that kind of shit was possible, are now going like, oh my God, this just happened, and I had this dream, and then this baby was called that name that I dreamt about, like, you know, and it's just beautiful. It's so beautiful to be like, yeah, you're here. So good. So yeah, it's becoming a broader thing, and, you know, the ones that have had that access to the third eye, you know, for longer, obviously maturing that skill a bit more too, so they can go a bit deeper with it, and obviously help people kind of understand it and work with it more, master it. So that was, you know, the first part of the awakening. Then there's the other lot, which is like the empaths, right, which is the heart space. So the removing of the heart walls. So basically, you know, when we're in that offline state, that 3D kind of fear-based state, we do protect ourselves, and we have like all these layers over our heart, so we don't feel too much. We kind of keep our energy real tight for protection, in fear of losing power, in fear of being taken advantage of. And, you know, a lot of women had that too, because obviously we've been suppressed for so long, and our voices are finally being able to crack through the surface of this, and that's through our hearts cracking open. We've found a safe space in this new frequency to be able to be in our full power, in our full feminine and masculine open essence, and not be vilified for it. So we're starting to get louder and louder voices, and we're starting to feel deeper and deeper, and we're starting to feel like a plethora of things that we never really had access to. So, you know, I've spoken to a lot of kind of tantra healers and that type of thing, and the really common thing amongst the mainstream is that most women are pretty much numb from the neck down, in a sense that they don't orgasm, they don't feel anything, they can't trust their intuition, they can't trust their gut, they don't know how to access it because it's all so numb. And that's a part of this awakening, is that we want to encourage people and women, or the feminine in particular, to start awakening in all of us. So that is opening our heart chakras and the removal of those heart walls. So that in order to do that, we must do all the healing, the mass healing that's happening. So we're dealing with our traumas, we're dealing with our many things that we were taught, we're unlearning, we're unprogramming ourselves, we're unsubscribing to all the shit that the patriarchal system basically subscribed us into by default when we were born. And now we're finally finding that this was not the reality that we belong in, and that we need to, you know, if we're wanting to ascend and live in this new earth where everyone feels equal and seen and heard and all equally respected and loved and connected, then this is the work that we're doing in the trenches right now. So mass healing, ancestral wound healing, big time. A lot of, there's so much going on within women's spaces with, with the rise of the feminine, and now we're realizing, the rise of the feminist movement, and the feminist movement not quite hitting the mark because it was still a very masculine orientated presence. And that was more like the women were tuning into their masculine energy and opening their third eyes, and that was coming back online. But what we're trying to do now is that it's like the feminist 2.0 is having their third eye activated, but also their heart chakras activated. So that's compassion, that's kindness, that's universal love, that's really where we have strength. And it's not in long term, it's not in that fiery, angsty, you against me shit. It's like, it's the union again. It's coming back together. And I understand it's a process. It's like the grieving process. You go through 7 different stages of grief, and totally we're all experiencing that at all different levels again too. So we can't accelerate that experience for anyone else but ourselves, and just focus on our own grieving process of a lot of the, the ego deaths that we're experiencing. And yeah, death of identities and death of, basically our old selves. And so we're now going through that grieving process and coming back online, and we're connecting our heart chakras and our third eyes. And this is how we now move forward from a really powerful, grounded place in this world, in this kind of earth, Gaia vibration, which is the new earth, as we've all heard about. But yeah, so it's big work, right? It's super big work. And I feel like we're getting there. I feel like now that, the ones that had their heart chakras cracking right open, and they're the ones that, identify as highly sensitive people or empathic people. And those people then, because their hearts were so wide open, it was like, all the dark energies in this 4th dimensional place that do exist, there's definitely still a bit of duality in the light and the dark in this space. They can feel that heart open and the leakage of that energy, because it's not, you haven't matured or mastered the art of reining that energy into its full power. So it's kind of like cracked open and it's spilling everywhere. And so darker energies do tend to find that. So that's when you find that narcissist, empath kind of dynamic. And that story can tend to play out throughout your life if you aren't aware of that dynamic in your life, and that you're basically, the fact that your heart chakra is wide open and is not boundaried in, and not kind of hasn't got any discipline or control from you, that it then leaks out, and people tend to want some of that because they haven't got it themselves. Their heart walls are up, but they go, "Ooh, I'm looking outside of myself for this thing." Obviously, that's not the right thing to be doing anyway in order to ascend. However, it's a partnership basically between the empath and the narcissist in that sense. And it's not a good or bad thing. It's just learning. It's an opportunity to learn more shit about yourself. So you attract these toxic people over and over again until you go, hang on a minute, what's the common thread here? Well, maybe it's me. Maybe there's something I need to be doing differently. So that's when you start to learn about boundaries, which has been a massive, massive theme of late, particularly with women, because we're the ones that have kind of cracked open these heart chakras, and this feminine side of ourselves. We're reigniting it and we're getting it back online, and we're tending now to see that we were a part of that problem, and we're learning to control our energy and our heart space energies. So we're now got boundaries in place, or we're implementing boundaries, and we're able to cut energy cords and all that type of shit that was tethering us back into that old low vibrational shit that was making us sick, making us feel toxic, even though we felt like we were woke, or we were some kind of like beautiful empathic angel, earth angel. but really it was just like a really base level of your awakening, and now you're starting to master the art of controlling that and learning this beautiful tool that you've got, learning how to work with it in an empowered way. So a lot of us have had that heart chakra kind of work that we've been diligently working on, and then others, obviously it's been the third eye stuff and just really honing in on those skills telepathically and whatever. But let's just say that if you've got one or the other online, it's not, your work's not done. So you will notice there's some people that are really do offer a lot of spiritual guidance and really do have a lot of awareness of what's going on in astral planes and in, you know, in these other dimensions. However, if they are not doing the work on their lower chakras, and particularly their heart and maybe the sacral chakra, and staying grounded, they're not necessarily someone to aspire to be like, or they're not necessarily at a higher stage of their awakening than you are, if that makes sense. So don't put anyone on a pedestal right now, because we're all doing this work and we're all coming to our own kind of conclusions about where we're at. But it's, again, it's not a race, but it's just like stages and levels that we're kind of rites of passage that we've got to work through. So there will come a time where, you know, the people that only have their third eyes awakened will realize that, you know, maybe they're having lots of repetitive relationship breakdowns, or can't even tend to maintain any relationships and feel very lonely and isolated, or have cut off humanity, or don't have any connection to or compassion for humans. So that's when people are like, oh, I fucking hate humans. Like, yeah, I get that. I get it. There's some shit humans, but they're just ones that are totally offline and they have like dark entities running the show. It's not them, right? We know that simply we have the awareness of the fact that, you know, we don't want to end up like those people. So we've got to keep doing the work on ourselves. But if we don't have compassion for humanity, if we don't have compassion for animals, if we don't have compassion for the earth, then we're nowhere near as woke as we thought we were. And because it's a holistic approach to awakening. It's not just like stay in the upper chakras and all this like expansive awareness, but no actual consideration for the groundwork and the foundation and the place that you actually physically live in with this human body of yours. And then vice versa is like, oh no, you deny the fact that there's anything going on out there, and you kind of don't tune into, you know, don't believe you have psychic powers and all that kind of thing. And you just like, you're a bleeding heart and you're a martyr, and you just, you know, you just want to help everybody. But if you haven't got the awareness to match that, then again, you still got work to do. And that's through your boundaries. That's through, just kind of becoming a bit more cluey with being able to tune into people's frequencies and going, you know what, that's a mismatch, it's a misalignment, and you are not my problem. I will show you how to help yourself. I will remind you of your power, but I will not take your power further away from you by you shoving all your shit on me and me having to process it for you. So that's the art of mastering that. And that's when your third eye can come back online too, is that you have full control of every situation that you're in life, right? Because you have that deeper awareness of the layout of the land that you're in, of how people work, of how things progress and change, and that you can shift your own reality based on the decisions that you make and the things that you apply yourself to and how you control your energy. So yeah, that's the work. And once we get both of those online, so, you know, in one language you could say it's the alignment of the feminine and masculine side. So you could see the third eye as the masculine side, the linear decision making, the awareness, the holding, being able to make decisions and stick to it, and having confidence and all that kind of thing, and just a deeper awareness of how the world works. Excuse me. And the heart chakra being the feminine, which is, you know, love and compassion and kindness and nurturing and all that kind of stuff, and playing in the feeling spectrum, and not really necessarily having much to do with making, smart decisions for yourself, or controlling your energy, and being responsible for your energy. Because it is a privilege to be who we are, and this is the work we need to do in order to be the best versions of ourselves and save humanity and help them expand and grow and reach this next version of humanity, this upgraded, this expansive, this one love consciousness. But this is, you know, we're all in the trenches in a different way. And so I think once you kind of know where you're at and you know what the work is that you've got to do and you can kind of see it laid out in front of you, then you just crack on with it. And, you know, don't get distracted by other people's shit. Everyone's suffering, everyone's grieving, everyone's going through their own thing, and it's pretty intense times. And a lot of this is individual work. It's a lot of individual work that we are having to do. And this is kind of like comes into the self-development, self-help, personal development side of things. Again, yes, that's all about serving the third eye chakra. However, then we've got to still come back down and realize that we're all in this together and we all need to love each other and support each other through it. And be a bit more forgiving, and that's, you know, operating from the heart chakra too. So you really need to engage in both of those parts of yourself in order to move through this in a relatively powerful way, as opposed to getting kind of slapped around and falling over all the time. You know, as your toddler running around, you're not hitting walls and tripping on shit and knocking your head on low tables. Like, you're aware of what's around, you're taking it in, you can see it, you have a bit of an awareness of what's coming around the corner and whatever. You can tune into the finer energies and be a bit more sensitive to your surroundings. But you also, you know, hold compassion for yourself and enjoy the process. And yeah, see that obviously the journey, it's all about the journey, not the destination. I'm sure we've all heard that one, but it's true, right? This experience is enriching us and giving us so much contrast and so much ammunition to be able to fire us up to this new like version of ourselves, new version of Earth, new vibration, new dimension. So yeah, that's where we're at, babies. And like, I just want you to know that if you're watching this and you've been nodding your head and you're feeling it, like, you're obviously here with me. And I just really wanted to share this as my experience, because I know that a lot of you kind of are on parallel journeys to me right now. And everything is coming at us full force for clearing, because it's accelerating. This ascension process is accelerating. So it's kind of like, you know, when you see a cell, right? And then you know that cells divide and they become 2, and then they become 4, and then they become 16. So it's basically, if you can see, like, in a sciencey way, how things can really rapidly manifest. And that's kind of like what's happening in this new place, right? Everything moves so rapidly. It's not like one here, then another one, then another one. It's like, no, it's like multiplying. So every thought you have multiplies and makes it so strong that you have to deal with it. You can't keep burying it for another 5 years. It's coming up, it's coming up, it's coming up, it's multiplying, 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 so that you pay attention to it and deal with it. You process it, you feel it, you sort it out, you cut the ties to it, and you heal it and you forgive it. And that's basically everything, good and bad, that's happening for us. It's not good or bad. It's just allowing us to process things and sort. It's kind of like the sorting hat. We're kind of working out what it is that we do want and what we don't want, and what we align with and what we don't align with. And it's not about right or wrong. It's not like, you know, I'm better than you because I'm doing more work than you. None of that shit. It's just like working out the fastest and most the easiest flows and slipstream that you can jump into, like in your vortex. So staying in your vortex, choosing to stay in your vortex, and knowing that everyone has a different vortex. Everyone has, you know, they have their own journeys, and not to meddle with it and not stick your nose in other people's shit without them obviously inviting you into it and asking for your help. And, you know, I'm definitely one, that's a massive learning for me, is not to try and solve problems that I wasn't asked to fix, right? So I think that's probably a really, really major thing that a lot of bleeding hearts and a lot of empathic types of people. And that's the mastering of your heart chakra stuff, right? You'll be feminine, just reining it in and not being toxic and not overextending yourself to the point where you're depleting your own energy. So we're all working on our energy, and I can feel my energy rising more and more that I do this work. And the only way that I was able to do this work was if I had to, basically I neglected, not really, but I neglected all the other things that I had taken on as my responsibility. I kind of let them go. So I dropped some responsibilities that I no longer had to, like I put them on myself. Nobody expected me to do these things, right? I decided they were my responsibility. So you can easily ditch things that, you can look at your day-to-day world and go, well, I don't have to do that. Like, I nominated myself to do that because I'm a martyr, or because, that was giving me some kind of egoic satisfaction. So that's the type of shit you can let go of really easily now. It's not serving us, because our energy is the most important thing. The most important thing. Nothing else but our own energy and mastering it. Because that's everything. That's the driving force. Our vibration is everything to us right now. So making sure that we are looking after our physical bodies, making sure we are looking after our mental bodies and our emotional bodies, and in turn then that shows us what our spiritual bodies are made of and gets them ready to come online, because they trust us now to run this show and to access this new dimension. Because before that, they're like, hell no, I'm not coming in there. It's toxic. You got all this shit going on. You got to clean that shit up first before I can come in and feel like confident in your ability to deal with this, because it's a lot. So yeah, that's I just wanted you to know you're not alone, and that's kind of what I've been experiencing. And I wonder if you've been experiencing something parallel to that. But just keep doing the work on yourself, keep staying in those trenches, and keep ticking the boxes and cutting those ties to all the stuff that's been tethering you into this space that you really feel a lot of friction in now. We want to cut the friction. We want to cut any resistance to where we're trying to go, right? So, like I said before, I felt really tethered to a lot of things that I had kind of put myself in, and that was a matter of me cleaning up my energy. As my beautiful friend Lauren would say, is getting golden. So I love that. I always remember her saying that to me years ago. She's like, I'm like, you dating anyone at the moment? What's happening? And she's like, no, babe, I'm just working on myself, just trying to get golden. And I always remember that. And it's totally what I've been doing too. Totally. I don't even have any capacity to give to anyone else but myself right now. Obviously my child, but obviously your immediate family, totally give energy where you have it in excess. But it's been really like an incubation period and a cocoon period to truly just like assimilate and process and sort through all the things that are coming at me all at once. And I know a lot of us have been going through that too. So please take care of yourselves, and just know that things will get better and better as long as we stick to the plan and we continually hold the vision of our higher self. So, I know you can feel what that person is like, right? So, what are their values? What are their desires? How are they spending their day? Who are they, relating with? Who are they, who's in their field of awareness? Who are you spending your time with? All of that stuff. You can totally workshop that stuff now and get really, really clear on your vision. So kind of making like a vision board of your future self in your mind. You could even write it down too. But that's really cool task for us to do in order to hold that vision for ourselves. So when we do start to fall off the track a bit and get a bit out of our vortexes, we can go, no, remember that girl that you want to be, or that woman that you want to step into? Well, she would not do this, right? And that's all. It's not about anybody else. What would anybody else do but yourself? So what would your higher self do? There we go. What would they do? So I'm going to title the video this, because that just sums it all up beautifully. So always asking yourself that question, and you really can't go wrong. You really can't get off the track too much, and you can accelerate your ascension process simply by asking yourself that question. So I hope this was helpful. I hope at least you just felt like, yeah, girl, I'm totally there. Thanks for reminding me that I'm not alone. And that, that's all I can wish for when I share this kind of stuff. So any comments or questions, please feel free to contact me or comment below. But yeah, I just wanted to let you know that you're loved, you are seen, you are heard, and you got this.